Okay, so good morning, everybody. So my name is Alexandria Culweather, and I'm an outreach specialist with the Wisconsin Cancer Collaborative. So I'm excited to have you all for our second COP meeting for 2024. And so just a few housekeeping notes. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're actively talking. We will be recording this meeting, and then we encourage you to have your camera on when talking if able and comfortable. And then feel free to respond via verbally or via chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. And then if you haven't already, please feel free to put your information in the chat just to save time. You can put your name and organization and then share a learning opportunity. Again, I will compile these so you don't need to feel like you have to rush to write all these down. I'll share this at the end of this meeting because I think there'll be a lot of really interesting opportunities that you might find relevant to you or not. And then just for a short agenda, we're going to have two COP members give presentations on their organizations today and the resources they provide. So the American Cancer Society and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And then I'll likely take one or two questions after American Cancer Society presents and then save most of the questions for the end so we have adequate time for both. And then we'll have a few announcements, and then if we have some time, we'll do open discussion if we have time. And then I did want to ask just one quick question before we get started. I'm thinking about our speakers for August meeting, and so I really want these topics and the speakers to be really useful to you and what you want to learn about. This group isn't for me, this is for you. And so I am just wondering if there's anything that you feel strongly that you want to learn about, if there's a topic or a speaker or an organization you want to learn about. You can feel free to put that in the chat or email me, and I'll take a look at that as I start thinking about speakers for August. And then for December, in case you weren't part of the group last year, we're going to probably do the repeat flash talks since those have been popular in the past, where a few of the members will do kind of a 5-minute overview of what they've worked on for the year. And that's volunteer. You don't have to do that. That's just a few people in the group will give a 5-minute flash talk. So if anybody has any ideas on that, please let me know. And then I'm also always happy to talk to you if you have any ideas too, if you want to schedule a Zoom call or anything. And then, so without further ado, I would like to introduce the COP's very own Sarah Richter. She is the Associate Director of Community Partnerships of the American Cancer Society. So Sarah, you can take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. You can advance to the next slide. Real quick, just wanted to remind everybody that the American Cancer Society, like many organizations, have gone through a lot of changes. And so we have 4 buckets of work that we like to talk about. One is the development or our fundraising arm. Discovery is our research. We have the patient support materials and services that I'll talk about today, as well as our advocacy arm. Next slide. So because we do a lot of advocacy, we have the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, and that's all separate from the American Cancer Society other 3 pillars that I just mentioned. So we can advance to the next slide. And I just wanted to kind of recap some of the advocacy work that happened in the last session. Next slide. So really, some of the successes was a healthy food incentive. This is really allowing individuals to get greater benefit from their SNAP if they use it with a farmer's market or a CSA to buy some of those healthy foods. We were able to defeat the tobacco bar, which again was another try at getting the cigar smoking and pipe smoking back into our communities. And then the Farm Bureau Health Plan was also defeated. Next slide. Some of the progress that's being made, this postpartum Medicaid bill is really As we know, Wisconsin's one of the few states that hasn't expanded Medicaid, so this is kind of us taking a little chunk of that expansion and working on it at a time. So with postpartum Medicaid, currently women only get 60 days of care after birth. And so the bill was really proposing to provide 12 months of care. And that is just to provide continuity for the mom. So important, right? Because a lot of things happen that year after birth. Baby gets covered, but mom doesn't. And so really trying to just expand that coverage. And uh, let's see, it did pass Senate, and the Assembly did not vote on it, but we're going to continue to try and make progress in that space. Another area of focus is on the PBM copay bill, which essentially when you have a drug company providing charitable assistance for non-generic products, it does not count towards the patient's deductible. And so really that's something that we're trying to change because that can make a huge difference for the affordability of care that people are paying out of pocket. So that again will continue to be worked on in the new year. And then palliative care, of course, near and dear to all of our hearts, continues to be something we're focusing on. This did pass assembly, but the idea really is we want to be able to form this advisory council, which could help make, educate and study where we're at and make recommendations on palliative care. So that's something we'll continue to, again, try and advance in the new year. And then the breast cancer screening, this bill is really about should a patient need additional tests after a screening mammography, that all modalities should be available at no cost. And this bill did get amended and it only included ultrasound. And so we remain neutral on that. It did not pass, but we're really mobilizing and hoping to advance these priorities in the new year. Next slide. In terms of the budget, again, $6.6 million to tobacco prevention and control program, which is level plus an additional, like I think $1.2 million, which was part of the Jewel settlement. And that will be, I think, over the next 10 years. And then keeping the support to the Wisconsin Well Woman program level at $2.3 million. Next slide. And so this is our advocacy staff. So if you have specific questions about any of those bills, these would be the folks that could answer them. And I encourage everyone on this call to get involved in ACS CAN. As Alexandria shared, there's a lot of restrictions about what can be shared and not shared when we're talking about advocacy. And so the best way to really stay informed is to be a member of ACS CAN, and you will get notifications when these bills are being discussed and what actions you can take if you wanted to write a letter or call or text and show support for certain things. And so I really rely on this group who's seeing the impact of legislation on patients and their families to really get engaged and be that voice for them for the policy change. Next slide. So then I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about ACS programs and services. The next slide will show our staff. So Kim Kenner and Chris Nielsen really manage the Cancer Center partnerships. I'm in a new role as the Associate Director of Community Partnerships, so I'll be trying to work more across the state. To really work with FQHCs, tribal healthcare centers, and community-based organizations. And then Matt Flory is supporting the state partnerships both in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And then we have Kim and Ruth who support our grant with Coles. So patient support programs range in a lot of topics. So we're just going to quite dive into the National Cancer Information Center. Next slide, which is our 800 number. So really anybody who's lost and doesn't know where to go, this is the easiest place to start. You can go to cancer.org and just do a chat. Or you can call, and we do have translation services available. And so if people are looking for navigation to try and figure out where can they go to get a clinical trial, or where do they go to learn about insurance assistance, or in the middle of the night, they wake up and they're freaking out and have questions, like this is sort of our catch-all place. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we get about 1 million visits each year. Next slide. Transportation, obviously, huge barrier for a lot of patients to get care. Next slide shows, I think, 3.6 million Americans are missing a minimum of one medical appointment due to lack of transportation. And of course, this leads to poor health outcomes. A lot of times people end up in the ER, and that's an increased cost. So really trying to provide solutions to this very complex problem. Next slide. And our Road to Recovery program continues to be sort of our first line of defense to provide patients, those rides. So this is volunteer driven rides by our volunteers that are trained for people who are in active cancer treatment. They must be able to walk unassisted to and from their vehicle. They must be 18 years old or older or accompanied by an adult, and they need to be free from anesthesia and infectious disease. So those are the criteria. Next slide. And we ask for a minimum of 25 hours advance notice, but really the longer window we have, the more success we have at matching those rides. While we rely on the cancer centers to provide a lot of the referrals, patients can also self-refer by calling that 800 number. Next slide. These are the requirements for volunteer drivers. Again, this is all to protect the patient, making sure that they have a full criminal background check, reliable transportation, and a lot of the matching for rides is now done, through the computer. So they need to be savvy on how to use the internet. And they do get training to make sure that, it's a consistent experience from driver to driver. Next slide. So we are currently recruiting. We are needing drivers in Dane, Milwaukee, Racine, and Kenosha counties. If you have the opportunity to share this and try and help us out, we'd greatly appreciate it. I don't want to be tone deaf to the fact that Prevea leaving the western part of the state has created some challenges for patients that are needing care. And so while Road to Recovery isn't in every community, that's not to say with some of these situations that we're not willing to have a conversation. So if you are affected by this and are interested in learning more how we can kind of meet the needs of your patients, please feel free to reach out to me. These slides will be made available. And again, all of our staff's email and phone numbers, I think, are available through the presentation. So next slide. We also do provide transportation grants to some of the hospitals as well as lodging grants. So there are additional opportunities. Sometimes a combination of using lodging and transportation is a good solution for somebody who's really struggling and has to go far to get care. Next slide. We have a partnership with Extended Stay America, which has provided $9 million in free lodging. And the great thing is that they are in lots and lots of communities, which is super helpful. So if a patient needed to use this, they don't call the extended stay directly, but again, could self-refer through that 800 number. But mostly we're relying on the referrals from the cancer centers as well to help patients make this link. So we also have our Hope Lodge program at ACS, which we don't have a Hope Lodge in Wisconsin, but we do have them in neighboring communities. We do have a pretty high utilization actually of Wisconsin residents who are going to other places to get their treatment. And sometimes it's just easier, again, to have that patient stay than to try and do the back and forth. So a lot of times it's really a combination of using multiple services to help get that patient through their treatment. Next slide. And this again is just the eligibility. The requirement is really that somebody's in cancer treatment and they're traveling for a cancer appointment. They need to live more than 40 miles away from a treatment center. They must have a permanent address and they must have a credit card that can be used to reserve the room for incidentals. And again, same thing, if you have children traveling with you, they need to be supervised at all times. Next slide. And again, this is just showing that referral process. So it's again, everything's kind of becoming more automated. But again, if you're not tech savvy like me, I'm still like going to call the 800 number and have somebody walk me through it and hold my hand. So we're here to meet everybody where they're at. Next slide. And then we have some new navigation programs to help support patients. Next slide. Our ACS Cares program is a community access to resources, education, and support. So it is that one-on-one, and it is done through an app, which can be downloaded in English and in Spanish. It's available. You are actually talking to a live person, although when you're playing around with it, it could look like you feel like you're talking to AI, but it's not. It's a real volunteer. And so it's a great way, again, for people to be able to get that one-on-one support. Next slide. And this is our new American Cancer Society Leadership and Oncology Navigation, or ACS Line program. So um, we are offering credentialing program to help people get this navigation training. Information is available by the QR code. Our own, many of you know Jen Balistreri, who previously worked at Aurora, has taken on the role of managing this navigation program for ACS. And so we would love to get people enrolled. And if you have questions, she's happy to help with those. Next slide. So this might not be as relevant to this group, but I did want to make you guys aware. We are currently running a paid media campaign called I Love You Get Screened. So it's really kind of trying to create that idea that even if you're not prioritizing screening for yourself, that you're doing it for your family so that you can be there for all those special moments. And as such, we have a screening locator tool available on cancer.org to help people plug in their address and find the screening that's near you. So it will show you, it's kind of small here, but I'll show you which screenings available at each facility. So if you guys have an opportunity, you can take a look at that. And if you have any updates, there's a place right here where you can click and make changes if your facility is not up to date. But really, this is a great way for people to be able to self-navigate when they know they need screening. Next slide. And then the Close Healthy Families program is where I have been at the American Cancer Society, working on this program for the last 10 years. And it's really a lot of source of pride. This partnership with Kohl's has allowed us to fund a lot of pilot projects that have really helped address some of the social drivers of health. And all the programming is located in southeastern Wisconsin, where Kohl's corporate headquarters is located. We do healthy eating and active living, cancer prevention, and survivorship grants. So there's 8 prevention grants and 4 survivorship grants. And these are really just the opportunity to help um, create more opportunities for residents to eat healthier, be more active, to reduce their cancer risk and cancer recurrence. And so we partner with community-based organizations, healthcare clinics, churches, wherever the space will allow for us to continue to build those opportunities for people to again engage in healthy behaviors. And then we do a bunch of professional development series, which I know Alexandria does a great job at helping me promote, but we'll have webinars. And then we just did our conference for CHWs last week. So just trying to again create educational opportunities for the workforce. And then last year was our first year doing a food insecurity forum. We brought a bunch of stakeholders together and talked about, where things are at. Obviously, the COVID benefits to food, to additional food assistance have rolled off, and we're seeing our food banks overwhelmed with inflation so high, lots of people struggling and in need of assistance. So we're going to continue to have these discussions and try and get more action oriented around how to address these needs. Our event this year will be hosted at UW Parkside in the fall. And so once that contract is finalized, I'll be sure to share that invite with the group. And then we're also providing 2 pilot projects with cancer centers who are doing that food insecurity screening among their cancer patients and trying to help connect them with resources so that they can continue to have better outcomes with overcoming on any barriers that are happening for them during their treatment. So, and then the last part of the Kohl's project is really working with screening initiatives. So there's a collaborative that meets with FQHCs and tribal healthcare centers to kind of talk about best practice sharing and messaging and things like that, challenges that are happening in the community that might be influencing people's ability to get screened. So this has been a great program and investment in the community to try and get more engagement and bring more opportunities in areas that may not otherwise have any. So next slide. Okay, I have included a ton of online resources for support. I won't go through them today, but Alexandria will send out the presentation and you'll have them available. Again, a lot of them are probably pretty familiar to you. Some of them are newer, but they are, there's abundance of resources for people who are looking for them. And you're welcome to share this presentation, or if you have a group that you feel like could benefit, I'd be happy to, you know, collaborate with you and share information that you think might be useful to the people that you're working with and trying to serve. But at this point, I guess I would open it up and see if anyone has any questions.
Sarah, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
My name is Rachel. Um, you said that ACS has a navigator program.
it is. Our navigation is either through the CARES program, which is that app, and then the credentialing program, which is the ACS Lions program. So those are the navigation programming options that we have available. So it's not a navigator per se, like you're used to in your hospital institution. So I apologize if I was not clear with that.
Okay. Because my next question then was going to be, what's the difference
do we-
between your credentialing program versus what ONS offers?
Yeah. Yeah, it's from what I've heard, it's a similar credentialing program. I have not gone through either, full transparency, so I could not say. But I think the idea is that participating in one or the other is great. We have no bias with that. So I just think it's a great educational opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
And then I know we also have like a crazy awesome quit line program in Wisconsin. But I know quitting smoking can be very hard. And so I always try and plug the Empowered to Quit program because many times people need to try quitting multiple times. And so it's nice to have a different resource to try and help them. So you'll see most of the programs are really more, technology based, which I think is just how we pivoted after COVID. Um, but like once you get enrolled in it, then I think, you're getting like some additional support and things that'll help you to quit. So I think that's always really encouraging. I see a question in the chat about the Lion Navigator program. So they had initial launch training, which has already been complete. And because there were so many people that were interested. There was a boot camp that was like a second phase. And because still so many people are interested, there's a wait list to do another training. So what that start date, I don't believe has been determined. But if you're interested in participating, I would just reach out to the contact information on the site, and they'll continue to create a list of people who are interested, and then when the next training is coming, let you know. I hope that helps, Laura.
Sarah, can I also just pop in quick about like other
Yeah.
trainings and things? So the credentialing programs and like opportunities, I think we've been getting a lot of questions from like the cancer collaborative angle, because I think there are a lot of options out there. And so we are kind of trying our best to really understand what's out there so that we can give a very detailed sort of summary of those different things. And like, if you're this type of a role, this one might be, more up your alley
Better fit.
versus this one. Cause I think there are some that are more geared towards different groups of people or different types of roles, I mean. And I think like, one thing that we're working on here soon is collaborating with groups like the AHAC or the Area Health Education Centers, because right now they do offer advanced CHW type trainings for community health workers, but cancer kind of broadly isn't a topic that's involved in their curriculum. So we're going to be working on that. And so if there are things that, folks would like to see in those types of trainings, I think those are things to also let Alexandria know, because we can kind of work at our level then across the state with some of those partners to make sure that we're including the information at those various kind of opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I think that's a great point, that there's a lot out there and it's a little hard to know which is the right fit for different individuals. Um, so definitely happy to help kind of bring that clarity and work on some of those things as well.
And Alexandria, too, maybe in your notes afterwards, we could get just a little summary statement from Amy, our policy coordinator, because I think the thing that's really getting people excited about a lot of these trainings is that CMS did do a rule change in January, I think, of this year, where you can now bill for those types of oncology navigation services. There's a lot of parameters you have to meet like within that. And so I think we can maybe find that language and make sure that goes along with the slides, because I think when you see that does get a lot of people really excited about finally having a way to pay for some of these kind of supportive things.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Good idea, Allison. Thank you. I think we could take maybe one more question for Sarah, if anybody has anything.
Sarah, I have a quick question for you, actually, if no one else does. For the
Okay.
transportation program, if you guys started to get a lot of interest from potential volunteers in an area, is that something that would like trigger ACS to explore expanding the program there? Or does it come from getting requests from people needing rides? Or is it maybe both ways?
Yeah, it's very chicken or egg, right? So you have to have both components moving kind of simultaneously or it doesn't work. You could train 10 drivers in a community, and if they get no requests, then that enthusiasm fizzles out quite quickly. Likewise, if you only have one driver and they get 100 requests, then they also freak out and leave the program. So it really does require sort of being very thoughtful and cohesive at moving both simultaneously in the same direction. And I think that's like Dane County would be a really good example of, um, you have some drivers who retired out or, and now we have like more requests than what we can fill. So then we go, okay, we need to increase the number of drivers in that area. And it's really interesting. We have some drivers that are just so loyal that they feel compelled that if they meet a patient, that they want to give that patient all their rides. And so it's kind of trying to help change that mindset too, so that they don't burn out. Like, this program that is so sweet and the intent is so wonderful, but, we all have boundaries we need to respect. And so, like, you can trust other drivers can help and you don't have to do 100% of all the requests. So that's always kind of the nuance with trying to onboard new volunteers and making sure that they provide themselves that balance. But I do know, like, again, it's a tough time in the state with lots of changes happening, and so I do think that part of my role is really to elevate some of those changes, and work together with this group and with the health systems to meet the needs that we're identifying in the community. So I think that's where I feel my role is more important, is to be that voice of the community of Wisconsin and advocate for the things that we feel are needed. And so that's where I would say the same thing. If ride is not a road if road to recovery is not a program in your community, but you feel it needs to be, please reach out to me, because I think there are ways that we can lift this up in other places.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And this was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I really appreciate all the resources you shared today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I am pleased to introduce Christina Nielsen. She is the Manager and Patient and Community Outreach from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So,
Hi,
Christine, you can take it away.
thank you so much for welcoming me today. I appreciate the time. And again, if anybody would like, I would like to echo what Sarah had mentioned. If anybody would like to have this presentation done for your organization or your cancer center, likewise, happy to share, happy to join your meeting or what have you. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. Our mission within the LLS, excuse me, is to cure all blood cancers. That's leukemias, lymphomas, myelomas. That is one that often people that are diagnosed with myeloma and providers that cover myeloma often don't realize because it's not in our name. We do cover all blood cancers, MPN, MDS, any kind of blood cancer is covered under our umbrella. Our lofty goal is to cure all blood cancers, but we know we can't do that without research. We've invested over $1.7 billion in research since our inception. We also drive advocacy. We can't support our patients without easier access, more affordable access to the treatments and therapies that are already out there. And of course, we need to support the patients along the way through resources and education. So next slide. How can you help? First and foremost, I want you to know you don't have to have anything I say today memorized. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of content in this slide deck, but just know how to access it. Our website, go to ls.org. You can email me, and just know that everything I mentioned today is free. All of the materials are free, shipping is free, the continuing education is free, everything is free. So if all you take away from today is knowing how to reach me and how to get to our website, and that things are free, that is perfect. That is really all I hope for you all to gain from today. But in, just for the sake of sharing the information, why don't you go to the next slide? So our first stop here is the Information Resource Center. These are our master's level oncology specialists. These are our people that have been in the field of medical oncology for many years, nurses, social workers, health educators, and now they have dedicated their expertise to LLS. So they're here to help answer questions for patients, for providers, providing a list of questions to ask your doctor, helping to understand treatment options better, how to get a second opinion. They're open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And they also, if you go to the next slide here, they can communicate in English and Spanish. They have a Spanish-speaking information specialist, and they also use the language lines. They can communicate in up to 350 different languages. So really accessible, here to help navigate through our resources, but then also outside resources as well. So they're happily referring to other organizations that can help provide support all the time. That's about half of what they do. So just know that if you have a person that needs support, they can seek out our Information Resource Center and call them, chat them, email them anytime, and they'll get back within 1 business day. Next slide, please. Financial support. So if you go to the next slide here, we have a robust amount of financial assistance programs. We try to keep a very well-rounded approach in terms of covering all aspects of the financial assistance journey. So we cover a patient aid program that's a one-time only stipend for anything. So you can use those funds on really anything. We also have a travel assistance program that's for obviously travel-related expenses. The general travel fund offers $500 every 6 months on a debit card. You can use it at a gas station, at hotels, anything you use at a travel-related expense, you can swipe that debit card. And then we also have a pre-CAR T-cell therapy travel assistance program that's up to $2,500 for that evaluation period. So we often know people doing that evaluation have frequent back and forth travel or a long hotel stay, trying to determine whether or not CAR T is right for them. So that is up to $2,500. The urgent need program is for a non-medical expense. However, it is just a check that you get in the mail. And so we don't monitor how you spend it, but really it's meant to help cover a non-medical expense. Childcare, utilities, mortgage, anything that you can think of can be applied to that. We also have sometimes a local financial assistance program. It really does depend on if we have a local donor or not. My territory is Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. And I know right now we only have a local fund for Minnesota. We're looking for donors for the other programs though. So if you happen to know anybody. And then we offer copay assistance. And this one is for medical expenses. We partner with pharmaceutical companies to be able to offer this. So it does vary depending on the diagnosis. Some of them are $2,000, some of them up to $11,000 per year. And you can use those things on tests and scans related to your medical treatment, pharmaceutical costs, insurance premiums, really anything that you can think of, and obviously copays as well. Next slide, please. So if you are familiar with our portals, just know that there have been a lot of improvements. We used to have separate portals for each of our programs. It was real clunky. We've come a long way since then. And now you can submit multiple applications at one time. You can attest to the diagnosis on the portal. There's a lot of really great improvements and also step-by-step guides. And so if you're having difficulty at all, call the phone number, visit the website, check out those guides, email me, let me know how I can help. Next slide, please. So support resources, lots and lots of support. Go ahead and go to the next slide. One of our biggest programs is our peer-to-peer mentor program, and it's called the Patty Robinson Kaufman First Connection Program. And that's because Patty Robinson Kaufman's family was the founder of this program. And really, it's meant to help connect newly diagnosed patients or patients that are starting a new treatment, or maybe they just need support. So we have a national database of volunteers, patient survivors themselves, caregivers, loved ones who now volunteer their time to LLS, who are available by phone call or email to connect with a new patient. So if a patient reaches out to us and says, hey, I was diagnosed with myeloma, and I'd love to talk to a person who has myeloma, who's done a stem cell transplant, who's now on this maintenance medication, because I have all these questions, we can make that happen. We have a database that we can sort based on diagnosis, based on treatment history, based on types of medications, based on types of side effects. We can get very, very granular with this match and connect them via email, connect them over the phone, and help answer questions. And most of the time, it's a 1 to 2 time phone call, 1 to 2 time match, but it can sometimes turn into a long-term mentorship. So absolutely let me know if I can help somebody connected in your world. Next slide, please. We also offer clinical trial support. So cancer clinical trials, the record for patients involved in cancer clinical trials is historically quite low comparatively to other clinical trials. And that's because they can be very difficult to be enrolled in. The navigation process to even search for a clinical trial that might be right for you is extremely cumbersome. It takes forever. And sometimes you're on clinicaltrials.gov for what seems like an eternity, and you get to the end of the search, and the trials that it gives you, you don't qualify for one reason or another. So many patients abandon their search or don't become enrolled. And so there's a serious need for this support. We have clinical trial nurse navigators who have been in the field of clinical trial oncology navigation for years and now have come to LLS to dedicate their time. So once you call the Clinical Trial Support Center, you are assigned a nurse, and you are assigned that one person throughout your entire journey. So if today you want to call and just ask some questions and seek out some education about clinical trials, maybe find out, are you going to get that dreaded placebo? No, they're going to educate you and let you know that in cancer clinical trials, it's completely unethical to give you a placebo. Worst case scenario, you're going to get the standard form of care, which hopefully is still quite adequate. Best case scenario, you might get a drug that has less side effects, less long-term and late effects, and has a better outcome for you in the long term. So there's a serious need for this, and just know that it's completely free. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, that's fine. And they support you throughout the entire journey. So they help with the navigation to find an appropriate list of clinical trials to bring back to your medical team. They will help to navigate through barriers to access, so providing you assistance with travel, with lodging, helping to get you to that actual clinical trial participation. And then they'll do follow-up along the way while you're participating, helping to do follow-up after the trial is completed to see how else can we support you? Would you like to learn more about other options? And so it's a wonderful service to get them connected. Again, simply just have them call our Information Resource Center. Providers, you all can also call and just seek information, or if you'd like to learn more about how to get clinical trials that are happening at your cancer center in front of our specialist, certainly let us know. We're happy to arrange a call. Next slide. Oh, I already mentioned this. So there's that phone number. Again, you can have them call the phone number. You can submit a referral directly to the website. So feel free to check that out. Next slide. We also have a community. So this is a way that patients can engage online in sort of a social media style platform. It's a really great way for patients to share information and to comment on articles and engage with people. And we've come up with a few different more interactive activities in the community. We've done a writing workshop that has been wildly popular. We just launched one in March, and within a couple of days, I think they had over 600 people signing up for this writing workshop. It was about healing through writing, and it was a really powerful workshop. We have a waiting list of about 400 or so people to do another one in September. So check that out. Feel free to send people our way. And we also have a series called Ask an Expert, where experts in the community can join for a segment of time for patients to be able to submit their questions to in real time. So we've had somebody on bone marrow transplants. We've had somebody on graft versus host disease. So really great topics for patients to come and join and ask their questions to a person that is a renowned expert. Next slide, please. We offer a wealth of booklet information, disease booklets, specific financial assistance workbooks, managing stress. This one is the caregiver workbook, and it is completely free. Again, it comes with a fully bound book about navigating the caregiver journey. It also has a medication organizer, a notebook with a tote bag, all completely free. And so people can call and order that. And if you go to the next slide, we also offer one for pediatric families. So a little bit more of a different aspect, considering young families tend to go through a little bit of a different journey. Next slide, please. So I know that not everybody in this call probably covers children, but I do want to spend some time here today because I think, especially when we talk about survivorship, you know, childhood cancers are largely survivable, which is great, but that means that we have a lot of survivors in our midst. We have a lot of survivors that are experiencing long-term and late effects that are completely debilitating. I have a young adult volunteer who's in her 40s, and she experienced a childhood cancer. And now in her 40s, she has her own cardiologist because she's having congestive heart failure. It's completely unfair that our children are being treated with medications that were first developed for adults. And so there is a severe need here. So we've launched what we call the Dare to Dream program. Next slide, please. So we are targeting it from 4 different approaches. We've launched a master clinical trial, which I'll talk more about here in a minute. We're funding more and more research. Policy and advocacy initiatives are out there focusing on survivorship and managing pre-existing conditions with insurances, and then also providing support along the way. So if you go to the next slide, we'll dig into these things a little bit in depth. So research, we're funding over 32 different pediatric specific research programs right now. Some of them ranging from trying to figure out how can we better screen children for these types of cancers? How can we improve side effects and long-term and late effects? And our goal since 2018 was 11 million. Our lofty goal in 2027 is 52 million for our research investment for pediatric patients. So we're hoping to achieve some great things in the next few years. Next slide, please. The PEDAL Master Clinical Trial is essentially 3 different approaches to that trial. First is we're targeting new therapies. Right now, we are enrolling certain sites into a new therapeutic drug trial for venetoclax for acute and relapsed and refractory acute AML. And we want to see if this new treatment is going to be safer, less long-term and late effects for children. And so we're enrolling certain groups into that study. We're hoping to launch several more of those therapeutic drug trials to be able to offer more and more options for kids. And then we're also partnering with the University of Chicago to launch the first pediatric data commons. Historically, research organizations have been very competitive when it comes to research. They want to be the first of the first to be able to put out that research and to say that they got there first. Well, we think that, as a neutral third party, we can help to facilitate this research so that we can share what we know to be able to find, better treatments and more safer, effective treatments for our kids. And then we're also collaborating with the University of Chicago to fund Gearbox, which is a search tool that we created to be able to enter in your child's specific genetics and history, treatment, et cetera, to be able to identify a treatment plan that would work best for your child. So really exciting things coming with that as well. Next slide, please. So advocacy. We know that there are a lot of challenges with advocacy, and so we're trying to break them down. One of the first big challenges is financial incentives don't support development of new pediatric treatments. So obviously we're targeting more and more funding, trying to get the NIH and other drug companies to fund more research. And really that's the end game here. We're trying to also make more incentives to have pharma companies bring pediatric drugs to market. And we're also hoping to make it a requirement to have somebody at the NIH to have pediatric oncology experts on their advisory board as well. Next slide, please. Our second challenge is that children are really treated as tiny adults. And so again, many children are being treated for cancers with drugs that were first developed for adults. And we really don't know what the long-term and late effects will be down the road until it's too late. And so we're really working with the FDA to adopt specific policies tracking the tailored biology of children, also working to secure federal funding for new data infrastructure that will allow pediatric cancer researchers to work more effectively, and then just investing in research and monitoring to better understand when pediatric cancers occur. Next slide, please. We also know that it's just incredibly difficult for families to navigate. And so how do we improve that? So we're working with offices to require Medicaid to cover care associated with clinical trials to increase our clinical trial enrollment. We're also ensuring that new federal laws banning surprise medical bills fully protects our patients. And so we love that, you know, this federal law bans surprise medical bills, but we want to make sure that it actually protects our patients. Also expanding palliative care, working for fertility preservation. So all kinds of ongoing issues that we want to continue to support. Next slide, please. And then long-term and late effects, insurance discrimination. We know that survivors now are struggling with these severe medical complications of their cancer treatment. So again, I have my young adult volunteer right now who has her own cardiologist, and she's really struggling. So making sure that her insurance doesn't discriminate against her for having been treated for cancer when she was a child. Also strengthening our Medicaid and CHIP programs to make sure that you know, those are covering what they need to cover, making sure that children can go to out-of-network places if it means that they get better care. So making sure that our kids and our survivors, our long-term survivors into adulthood are being supported. And so if you have an interest in advocacy, you can sign up to ls.org/advocacy, or you can email me. I'm happy to email you a link directly to sign up. Next slide, please. So we mentioned the pedal, we mentioned the research, we mentioned advocacy. We also are here for education and support. There's been a tremendous amount of resources that we've launched over the last couple of years, and some of them are just so darn precious. There is a MediTeddy there that hides an infusion bag. We have a children's book series that just recently won an award, and we're working on a sequel to that. So the children's book series walks through the diagnosis of a child named Olivia. The first book is her diagnosis, the second book is her treatment, and the third book is her integrating back to her regular life. And the sequel that we're launching soon will walk through the life of her brother to be able to help support siblings through their journey as well. And then the other really fun one I love, there's lots of things on the screen I love, but the other one I love is that nutrition handbook for parents. It is a functional book for parents with recipe cards to be able to, you know, make sure that they are on track with their kids' health journey. But in the back, you can see there's that food fun book. And this is, again, highlighting our friend Olivia on her food fun journey. And it's a little recipe book for kids. So it has little recipe cards that kids can rip out, and it's got recipes for ants on a log and healthy snacks. And it's really, really great. So I just want to point out all these resources are completely free. And many of these resources are pretty general in nature. And so if it's not a blood cancer that you support, if you have a family that you think might still benefit from this information, absolutely feel free to order it. Feel free to seek this out because, you know, it can be pretty general for any person facing a cancer diagnosis. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then we also support teenagers. So we have a new book called A Teen's Guide to Everything Cancer. It kind of started out as a magazine, so we're hoping to, oh gosh, my bad. So we can wrap it up. Just know that there's a scholarship, there's a teen thing. Next slide, please. See if there's anything else to mention. Oh gosh, I didn't plan for timing well enough. Let me see here. So really, I just want to mention, we have our booklets. We have continuing education. If you want to skip ahead here, just know that we have continuing education for patients as well, or excuse me, for providers as well, for you all. And then that referral form, that last page is our referral form. So just know if you're trying to connect a patient, you want to make sure they have access to resources. If you go to ls.org, go to that research and healthcare professionals, there is a patient referral form that'll get a person directly to our information resource center, and they'll get access to everything that we can offer. Or you can connect them to me. Again, if all you took away from today is how to reach us, that's perfect. And so thank you so much for your support and your time. Happy to take a couple questions.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful resources, and we'll be able to share this information so everybody can have it. And I'm just going to go back to this one too so people can see the free nutrition consultations.
Yes, and just know that this is open to any cancer diagnosis. Our free nutrition consultations are completely free for any cancer diagnosis. It doesn't have to be a blood cancer.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And we do have one question in the chat. So the caregiver workbook, I'm assuming that is specific to lymphoma and leukemia diagnosis, or is it more general caregiver
So
workbook?
it does have some specific language to blood cancer, but it does have, so if you're curious at all and want to know, can it still work for my patient? I'm going to pop a link in the chat here to, it has components of the caregiver workbook in the booklet ordering center. The fully bound book, if you'd like to order that, you do have to call our information resource center. But if you'd like to see if the snippets match up to what you would need, you can download the snippets from our website and just check them out. Another book that we offer is a survivorship workbook, and it's completely free. And this one does have some pretty general language in it as well. So if you'd like to take a look at that, feel free to.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I will be sure to include that in my follow-up email for everybody. Okay, anybody else have a question for her?
Okay, thank you all so much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you also for bringing up pediatric cancer. I appreciate it. So thank you. Wonderful resources and wonderful resources from both of you. So I really, really appreciate both of your time. Okay. And then just a few final announcements. I don't know if we'll ever get to an open discussion in our meetings because we just always have wonderful resources from everybody, but I can hope one day. But we have wonderful presenters every time, so thank you for that. So just some upcoming announcements. We invite you or anybody you know to join the Wisconsin Cancer Collaborative at our regional meetings. This year it's going to be in Belmont and then or Stevens Point. Registration is free and breakfast is included. And then also just to save the date. So this is going to be our Wisconsin Cancer Summit in September, and it's going to be in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And we are also going to be seeking nominations for people and organizations whose work inspires you and demonstrates building connections and what building connections can mean for a community. So we'd like to honor the people and organizations making significant contributions to cancer control in Wisconsin. So please feel free to nominate people that you think would be worthy of those nominations. They do not have to be a Wisconsin Cancer Collaborative member to be eligible for those nominations. So I will send those out when those are available. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. And then our next meeting will be in August. So if you have any speaker suggestions or topic ideas, I will just be compiling those for ideas for that. And then again, I am always a resource. Please feel free to always reach out to me. I'm always available to talk about anything. And then I will send out the recording and a compilation of resources and events from this meeting. And then I will hang on to this call if anybody wants to talk one-on-one. But thank you everybody for your time. So thank you and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.